Dosage calculations. When it comes to dosage calculations, you have 3 or 4 basic type of math. Let me discuss all 4 right now, okay?
Okay.
The first one is, and you have to remember formulas. The way I teach is through formulas. D over H times quantity or volume. And I'll explain what that means in just a bit.
Okay.
Let's start with this one. In these particular questions, you're going to notice that there's going to be a doctor's order. And there's going to be what you have on hand.
Okay.
Also known as your availability. Okay. And then you're going to have your availability is usually per every ml. So let me give you an example. Let's say your doctor's order is to give 500 milligrams, right, of a particular drug. That's your doctor's order. But then what you have available, what you have on hand is, let's say it's 150 milligrams for every 2 mLs of a solution. All that means is that when you have the medicine right here, all that means, and again, let's say that the label's right here, whatever the medicine is. I'm not going to draw too much information, but you have some type of prescription right here, and it's going to have all this stuff, right? Well, somewhere in that label, it's going to tell you, oh, you know what? We have a total of 10 mLs in here. And for every 2 mLs, that equals 150 milligrams. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, sir.
So what we this is what your availability looks like. Availability. That's what it looks like. But your doctor's order is fixed, meaning that the doctor's order never changes in the sense of whatever the doctor's order. Okay. So when the doctor says, I want you to give 500 milligrams available, the nurse has 150 milligrams for every 2 mLs. But then there's going to be the actual question. The question is going to be formed in mLs. How many mLs do you give? You see how it's asking you for mLs. Remember that I said that if the question asks you for milligrams, for units, for micrograms, for let's say kilograms, for mLs, if it asks for any of these tabs, capsules, if this is what the question is about, if this is what the question's asking you, then you know that you're going to use your D over H formula.
Okay.
Time, quantity, also known as volume. That's what this whole 2 mLs part is. Because there's 150 milligrams for every 2 mLs. So that's what this is, for every. Okay. So all we have to do now is plug in the information.
Okay.
The doctor ordered. So anyway, where's your doctor's order? How much is that based on the question that I provided for you?
500 milligrams.
500 milligrams. Okay. What about what you have on hand, your availability?
150 milligrams.
For every, how much quantity or volume?
2 ml.
2 ml. Now you've went ahead and written down your question, and what you can plug that into your calculator, and you plug in 500 divided by 150. That gives us 3.3333. Now what you have to do is you have to get that answer and you have to multiply it by your mLs, because that's what the formula says to do, correct?
Yeah.
So you get that 3.333333, you multiply it by 2 mLs, and that gives you 6.666. Let's say that the question the question will tell you to round, whether it's to the nearest whole number
Okay.
whether it's to the nearest whole number, whether it's to the nearest tenth, or whether it's to the nearest hundredth. That's what it's going to ask you. So, Mr. Tayo, if you round our answer 6.666 to the nearest whole number, what's your answer?
That'll be 7.
That is correct, because the whole number is this one. We always have to look to the number next to it.
Next to
If
it,
it's 5 or greater, then that moves up. If it's less than 5, it stays down. So, how much is it going to be, sir? If you round to the nearest whole number,
that'll be 7 ml.
7 mLs. That's right, because this pulls it up, and then it becomes 7 mLs.
Yeah.
And if I ask you to round it to the nearest 10th, then that means that this is the number we're looking at. That's going to either change or stay the same.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep an eye on the number next to it. And so then that becomes a 7, and your answer now becomes 6.7 mLs.
ml, yeah.
So it just depends on what the question, what they're telling you to round to. Is that clear, sir?
Yes, sir.
Can I clear this out?
No, yes, sir. Just a minute.
No worries. No worries. Take your time. Record, and now let me explain how this works, okay? So again, when it comes to drip factors, we have dosage calculation. We have dosage calculation drip factor, right? This is the formula that you must memorize. Drip factor talks about there's going to be normal saline given. That's your total volume.
Yeah.
The drip factor is going to be the tubing that you're going to use, which could be either micro or macro. And it gives you your drip factor formula. How many drops equal
drops.
Yeah. In micro, and then it could be 10, 15, 20, 25 in macro drop, but they're going to give it to you. And TV stands for total volume. DF stands for drip factor. And the minutes is you multiply the hours by 60, and that gives you your minutes. Okay. And what I was explaining here is that your macro drip has bigger tubing, hence bigger drops, macro drops. And your micro drip has smaller tubing, hence micro drops, smaller drops that will take to fill up 1 ml, which is found in this chamber. Any questions, sir?
No, I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Okay, now let's do a little practice question, okay? Can I clear this stuff out?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so let's say that the doctor prescribed, he wants you to give 1,200 mLs of normal saline. He wants you to give that over 8 hours, and he wants you to use a drip factor of 15 drops. Oops, sorry. Per ml. The question is, how many drops per minute will you give? If this is what the math question is asking you, if you see this GTT, drops per minute, this is the formula that you're going to be using.
Okay.
I don't care what other information is in the question. If this is the question right here at the end, if this is what it's asking you, how many drops per minute, this is the formula that you're going to be using. Is that clear, sir?
Yes, sir.
So let's start plugging it in. We know that it's asking us for drip per minute, so we know it's drip factor. The formula is total volume times drip factor divided by minutes. Where is your total volume, sir?
The total volume is 700 ml.
And what do we multiply that by?
The drip factor,
which is
drip factor is 15 drops per ml.
Oops. Okay. And what goes at the bottom?
The 8 hours.
So you put it in 8 hours?
No. That is 8 hours times 60.
So it becomes 480 minutes.
480, yeah.
Okay. That's because 60 times, 8 times 6 is 48. You add a 0, but
Yes.
you know, times 0 is 0. 6 times 8 is 48. So it becomes 480
Yeah, minutes.
minutes, right? But again, what you did is you multiplied the hours times 60. That's what we did. So now we compute. We get the phone, we get our calculator or your phone. That's what we're using nowadays, right? And we start plugging this stuff in. We get 1,200. We multiply that by 15, and that gives us 1,800. But now we have to get 1,800, and we have to divide it by our 480 minutes. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
you get not 1,800, 18,000. Excuse me. You get 18,000. We divide it by 480, and that gives us 37.5 drops per minute. Did you get that, Mr. Tayo?
Yes, sir. That's 7.5. Yeah.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay, good. Now, what you have to understand is that you can't give drops. You can't give a half of a drop. So you can always round to the nearest whole number.
Oh, okay.
When it comes to drops per minute. Okay, questions, okay? So this becomes 38
38. Yeah.
drops per minute. Does that make sense, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Understand that sometimes when it comes to the mLs, they might tell you, oh, the doctor said to infuse 1.2 liters. This is 1,200 mLs, but you have to learn how to convert it. You have to learn how to convert the liters to the mL. So just know that in 1 liter, you have 1,000 mLs, and that will help you compute, because if it's 1.5 liters, well, that's 1,500 mLs. Does that make sense, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions on this?
Not really, sir.
Okay. Let me know when I can clear so we can move on.